You've arrived at the Candlelit Archive, a place that does not appear on maps and does not exist during the day. Only when the world grows quiet and the thoughts in your mind begin to slow does it open for you. Tonight, you have been granted access to one of its quietest rooms. A story that was never meant to be rushed. So you do not need to stay awake for it. In fact, you are not expected to. Just listen as long as you can and let the rest fade on its own. There are rivers that carry rain, rivers that carry leaves, rivers that carry the silver reflection of the moon. And then there are rivers that carry other things, things misplaced, things forgotten, things once loved and quietly set aside. Tonight, I will tell you of such a river, a slow river with dark water and patient banks of moss and stone. A river that passed through an old town without hurry, without sound. And beneath that river, hidden below the current, below the roots, below the drifting silt, there was a library. The town was old enough that no one agreed how old it truly was. The streets curved strangely as though built by memory instead of by plan. Its windows glowed softly at evening. Its chimneys breathed thin threads of smoke into the dusk. And through the center of it all, the river moved, not wide, not narrow, only certain. Children tossed pebbles into it and watched the rings widen. Merchants crossed its bridges with baskets and lanterns. Cats watched it from walls with ancient seriousness. And the townspeople spoke of it kindly, but never at length. For they believed, as people often do, that some things are better loved than explained. In a narrow house beside the third bridge lived a woman named Mara. She was not known for great adventures, nor for loud opinions, nor for arriving early or leaving late. She was known instead for keeping small things safe. Dropped gloves, unclaimed keys, letters slipped beneath doors with no name written outside, buttons found in market squares, ribbons carried by the wind. If something was lost, but not entirely forgotten, it often found its way to Mara. She kept these things in neat drawers and quiet boxes, stacked carefully along the walls of her home. Not because they were valuable, but because once they had mattered to someone. evening, when the lamps were being lit and the town was softening into blue, Mara heard something strange. Not from the street, not from the bridge, not from the kettle warming near the hearth, but from beneath it all, a sound under the ordinary sounds, a hush beneath the hush, a turning as if many pages moved by no wind at all. She stood very still. The room stood still with her. Again, there it was, a distant rustle, then silence. Then the faintest drip, as though water itself had paused to listen. On the table near the window, among the day's small findings, lay a key. Old brass, long stemmed, its teeth worn smooth by time or by use, or by being held too often. Mara did not remember finding it. She did not remember placing it there. And yet, there it was. Beside it, a folded slip of paper. No seal. No name. Only 3 words written in neat gray ink. When the river sleeps. Mara read the words once, then again. The letters did not change. but the room somehow felt more expectant. Outside, the evening deepened. The river darkened. The town grew quiet. One window at a time. Mara took the key. She put on her coat. She stepped into the street where lantern light rested in small golden pools. No one stopped her. No one asked where she was going. It was the sort of evening that allows a person to belong to their own silence. She crossed the first bridge, then the second, and came at last to the third. Below it, the river moved darkly, smooth as folded silk. She waited there with the key warm in her hand. Minutes passed, or only moments. It can be difficult to tell near water. Then, slowly, the current changed. Not stopped, not parted, but gentled, as though the river had grown thoughtful. The surface dimmed, and beneath it, stone steps appeared, leading downward through the water into the dark below. Mara looked behind her. The town was quiet. The lamps burned steadily. A cat watched from a wall and blinked once, as if to say nothing at all. She turned back. The steps remained, waiting without impatience. She placed one foot upon the highest stone. It was dry. The water curved beside it without touching her shoe. Then the next step, and the next. Downward she went while the river flowed on either side like dark glass. The air grew cooler. The sounds of town thinned above her. Lanterns became stars. The bridge became shadow. And below, a soft amber light began to rise. At the foot of the stair, there stood a door, tall, wooden, bound with iron, green with age. No lock could be seen. Only a keyhole, bright as if polished yesterday. Mara held the brass key. For a moment, she wondered not what was beyond, but why it had called for her. Then, gently, without haste, she placed the key into the waiting lock. It turned as though continuing a motion long begun. And somewhere beyond the door, deep beneath the river, 1,000 pages sighed at once. The door opened inward. Beyond the door, the air was still, not stale, not close, only hushed, as though sound itself had chosen to walk more softly here. Mara stepped inside. The door behind her did not slam. It did not creak. It simply became part of the silence. Before her, a long hallway stretched outward, lit by lamps set in niches of stone. Their flames were pale gold and did not flicker. The floor was smooth, worn by many feet, or perhaps by the passing of years alone. And on either side, rising into shadow, stood shelves. Rows upon rows of shelves. Tall shelves. Narrow shelves. Shelves of cedar and oak and dark wood she could not name. They climbed upward and curved away until distance became mystery. Books rested there in patient thousands. Some bound in leather, leather soft with age. Some stitched in cloth, faded to the color of rain. Some wrapped in paper, tied with thread. Some so thin they seemed made of whispers. Mara did not move at first. She only listened. Somewhere far off, water moved above the ceiling. A slow wait. A silver pressure. The river passing overhead without ever entering. And beneath that distant flow came another sound. Pages turning. One here, then somewhere else, then farther away, as if the library itself were reading in its sleep. She walked forward. Her footsteps were softened by a runner of deep blue cloth laid through the center of the hall. Dust did not rise. Cobwebs did not gather. Nothing there felt abandoned, only waiting. At the first aisle, she paused. A brass plaque, no larger than her hand, was fixed to the shelf end. Upon it were written 3 words: things nearly remembered. Mara's gaze moved to the books nearby. Each spine bore no title, only a date or a season or the shape of a leaf stamped in gold. She drew one gently free. It was light in her hands. When she opened it, there were no printed lines. Only the scent of summer grass and the sound of someone laughing from another room. Then it was gone. The page lay blank. She closed the book and returned it carefully. You may open them, said a voice nearby. It was so calm that Mara did not startle. She turned. An older figure stood at the end of the aisle, hands folded loosely as though they had been standing there for some time. Their coat was long, the color of river stone. Their hair silvered softly like light on water. Their expression held no surprise and no demand, only welcome, a welcome quietly offered. I hoped, said Mara gently, that I was alone. You are, said the figure, and you are not. The answer settled in the air without needing explanation. Are you the keeper of this place? Mara asked quietly. The figure considered. For a while, they said. That is usually enough. They inclined their head, not formally, but kindly. You may call me the librarian. The librarian moved beside her with footsteps quieter than her own. They touched one shelf lightly, as if greeting an old companion. These are not histories, they said. Not inventions. Not exactly. Mara waited. The lamps waited with her. They hold what slips away. The almost lost. The half kept. The names on the tip of the tongue. The face from a dream, seen once and never again. The road not taken, but often wondered about. The smell of bread from a kitchen long gone. The sound of rain on a roof that no longer stands. Things the world sheds, but does not wish to destroy. Mara looked again at the endless shelves. So much is forgotten. So much is loved, said the librarian. They walked onward. The next brass plaque read, "Letters never sent." Mara felt the smallest stir of recognition, though she could not say why. Thin volumes lined the shelves, each tied with ribbon. Blue ribbon, gray ribbon, ribbon the color of candle wax and winter dusk. She reached toward one, then stopped. The librarian noticed, but did not urge her. Some books are best opened, they said softly, when they ask to be. So Mara let her hand fall, and together they continued on. Far above, the river shifted. A broad, slow movement like silk being drawn across wood. Light trembled faintly overhead through the stone itself. Blue-gray, silver, then stillness again. Does it ever flood? Mara asked. Only with memory, said the librarian. They smiled then, not widely, but enough to warm the hall. At last they came to a circular chamber. Here the shelves curved inward, embracing a wide table of polished wood. Upon the table lay nothing except a single empty space outlined in dustless grain. As though something belonged there and had not yet arrived. The librarian rested a hand upon the chair nearest the table. We sent for you, they said. Mara held the old key, still warm, in her pocket. I know, she said, but not why. The librarian looked at her with that same calm regard. Because, they said, you keep what others misplace. Mara thought of drawers, of ribbons, of keys with no locks, of notes slipped beneath doors. That is only a small habit, she said. Small habits, said the librarian, often open the oldest doors. From somewhere beyond the chamber came the sound of approaching wheels. Not hurried, not heavy. A little cart emerged, guided by no visible hand. Upon it rested a single object wrapped in linen. The cart stopped beside the table, then was still. The librarian folded back the cloth. There lay a book with no title and no spine at all. Its covers were smooth as river stones. Its pages shimmered faintly as though not entirely dry. Mara felt at once that she had seen it before. Not with her eyes. Somewhere older than sight. This, said the librarian, is why you came. The lamps glowed softly. The river passed overhead, and the unopened book waited between them. Mara stood beside the table with the book before her. The linen cloth lay folded like a small, pale wave at the edge of the wood. The librarian said nothing. The lamps said nothing. Even the river overhead seemed to pass quietly now. She reached out and placed her fingertips upon the cover. It was cool, then warm, then neither one nor the other. Like touching water remembered by stone. Slowly she opened it. The first page was blank. Not empty. Blank in the way winter fields are blank while seeds sleep beneath them. She turned the page. Again, nothing written. only the faint scent of rain on old wood and the hush of distant current. A third page, a fourth, still no ink, no title, no explanation. Mara looked up. "Is it unfinished?" she asked. The librarian's eyes held the pale lamp light. "No," they said softly. "It is listening." Mara lowered her gaze to the page before her. She did not try to think. She did not search for meaning or memory or the proper question. She simply breathed in and out, and slowly, very slowly, the page began to change. Not with lines of ink rushing into place, not with letters falling from above, but with the gentlest darkening, as though words had always been there, hidden beneath the paper, waiting to rise. At last, a single sentence appeared. The blue ribbon belonged to no package. Mara blinked. The sentence stirred something in her, small and distant. A shop in winter. Cold glass. Her mother's hands wrapping nothing at all, only practicing bows for a gift they could not afford. Then the memory passed, leaving warmth behind it. The words faded. The page became pale again. Mara turned to the next page. The brass button was never lost. This time she saw a coat hung for many years behind a narrow door. A father laughing while searching the floorboards though the button had remained in his pocket all along. She smiled without planning to. The sentence dissolved like mist over water. Page after page, the book offered such things. Not grand secrets, not hidden fortunes, not prophecies, only small truths that had once lived quietly inside ordinary days. The scent of pears in a market now gone. A song half heard through summer shutters. The weight of a sleeping cat upon a lap near midnight. The shape of light beneath a door while someone beloved worked late into the evening. Each appeared. Each was known. Each slipped gently away. At last, Mara closed the book and rested both hands upon it. I thought rivers carried things away, she said. They do, said the librarian. They carry them onward. They moved to the chamber wall where shelves curved upward into dimness. People think forgetting is the same as losing. Often it is only a change of address. Mara listened. Above them, the water pressed softly through the stone. The river takes what cannot remain where it first belonged, the librarian continued. A season, a voice, a room, the exact sound of footsteps in a house now empty. It carries such things until they may rest without being broken by time. Mara looked around at the shelves without end. And this library is where they are shelved until someone needs them. without knowing they do. The lamps lowered slightly, or seemed to. The chamber deepened into amber hush. The librarian touched the cover once more, then stepped back. "One page remains," they said. Mara opened the book again. Near the center, now a page already darkened, as if waiting ahead of her. She read the words there, very softly. "You were never keeping objects." She read on. "You were practicing how to care for what cannot be held." The chamber grew stiller than stillness. Even the distant turning of pages throughout the library seemed to pause. Mara thought of all the drawers in her house. The gloves, the keys, the letters with no names, the ribbons curled by years. Not treasure, not clutter, only traces waiting to be treated kindly. Something within her, not painful, not sharp, but long quiet, settled into place. When she looked again, the words had vanished. The librarian gathered the linen cloth and wrapped the book once more. The little cart rolled forward, soundless and patient. When the cloth-covered book was placed upon it, the cart turned and disappeared into the aisles, where pale lamps watched it go. "Will I remember this?" Mara asked. The librarian considered. "In parts," they said, "as people remember rivers, not drop by drop, but by the feeling of having stood beside one." Mara nodded. seemed enough. Together they walked back through halls of waiting shelves, past letters never sent, past things nearly remembered, past aisles whose plaques she could not fully read, though they filled her with a calm she could not name. At the door beneath the river, the librarian paused. "You may return," they said, though not always by wanting to. Before Mara could ask how else one returns, the librarian smiled with that same Riverstone kindness and stepped back into the amber light. The door opened. The stair rose upward between walls of dark water. Mara climbed. One step, then another. Above her, the town glimmered faintly through the sleeping current. When she reached the bridge, the river was flowing as before. No steps remained. No doorway. Only black silk water moving beneath the stars. She returned home by streets that seemed both familiar and newly arranged. Her key turned easily in the lock. Inside, the small rooms awaited, with chairs, shelves, lamplight, and the steady comfort of ordinary things. She lit no candle. She needed little light. Moonshine rested upon the drawers, where so many misplaced objects slept. Mara opened the first drawer, then the second, then the third. There were the gloves, the ribbons, the notes slipped under doors, the key with no lock, though she could not say if it was the same one. She touched each item gently, not to claim it, only to know it had been cared for. Then she closed the drawers one by one. The room felt fuller somehow, though nothing new had been added. In the days that followed, the town remained itself. Merchants crossed bridges. Cats watched walls. Windows glowed at evening. The river moved on without explanation. Now and then, someone would pause beside Mara's door and leave a small, forgotten thing. A small thing upon the step. A child's marble. A thimble. A pressed flower between pages. She always brought them in. She always made room. And sometimes, late at night, when the lamps were low and the town had become a hush of roofs and chimneys, she would hear it again. Beneath the floorboards, beneath the kettle's cooling tin, beneath the ordinary silence of her narrow house, the turning of many pages, never loud, never urgent, only there. She never hurried to the bridge. She never searched the water for hidden steps. She had learned that certain doors open best when not pursued. Yet, once, on an evening blue with mist, she passed the third bridge and glanced down. The river moved darkly, smooth as folded silk. But just beneath the surface, for the briefest moment, she thought she saw a pale lamp drifting below the current, as though carried carefully through corridors of stone. Then it was gone. Or perhaps it had never been there. Mara walked on. The town breathed softly around her. Somewhere a window closed. Somewhere bread cooled on a sill. Somewhere pages turned where no wind could reach them. And beneath the river, whether in chambers of stone or only in the patient depths, where lost things learn to rest, the library remained. Shelves waiting, lamps glowing, books listening for the next small truth the world was ready to let go. And the river, keeper of what moves on, went on carrying it there. And now the Candlelit Archive grows quiet again. The books return to stillness. The lanterns continue their gentle watch. And the story is safely put away until it is needed once more. You do not need to finish this moment awake. You do not need to hang on to anything from it. Only rest. Only slow down.